The Garuda is the new ship for Season 4, and it takes the crown for the best damage per second ship. If you build it correctly, it will easily outperform a Sandbook or any other ship for DPS. I highly recommend you grind for this ship, as it is extremely powerful and when fully upgraded allows you to use 6 long guns on the front of the ship. So it plays very differently to other ships that are currently available to us. This new ship is not only great for PvP and PvE ship fights, but is also great at plundering forts and ports, as it does insane weak point damage that melts the enemy structures so quickly. Let's jump straight into the build so I can show you how it all works. Firstly, we want the Garuda upgraded the full 6 times. This gives us access to the Deadeye and the Revolver perks. Together these perks allow 20% increase to piercing damage weapons, and damage increases the further we are from the target. Also, once the target has the punctured status, we do a bonus 30% damage. Plus, it gives us access to the 6 long guns on the front, which is extremely lethal. Punctured is the new status effect if you hurt the enemy enough with piercing weapons. The Revolver perk does have some negatives, such as longer reload times and decreased weapon damage, but I'll show you with the right furniture pieces we can negate all of the negatives and become the most lethal pirate in the Indian Ocean. Let's jump straight into the build. For our major furniture slot, I highly recommend using Tuling's Guidance. This gives us extremely good increases to damage when hitting weak points, and reduces the reload time of front weapons by 7%. So now we only have 14% longer reload times at the front of the ship, due to those other perks. Next up is Plaguebringer's Ward. This reduces reload time by 15% and increases damage by 8% for toxic weapons. We pair this with the Lapik 3 long guns, and now we completely negated the Revolver perk's extended reload times, and we actually reduced reload times by a further 1%. This is really noticeable when using the long guns on the front. In the third slot, I use beam supports, because the Garuda is a bit squishy and weak at close range. So the added health and armor keeps us alive longer to keep dealing extremely high damage. In the fourth slot, I recommend using Long Gun Works. This increases our piercing damage by 19%, which really helps us get the punctured status on enemies, especially when firing all 6 long guns on the front. Next is the front powder kegs, which is no surprise because it increases front weapon damage by 10%, which makes our 6 long guns on the front even more deadly. Lastly is Kinkle's Laboratory. This helps our survivability by increasing armor by 5%, increases radius of mortar and damage to structures by another 5%. This really works well with our Lafleur mortar we have equipped because it gets the 5% increased radius and reduced reload times and increased damage from the Plaguebringer's Ward furniture piece. As for the other weapons, on the front and back and both sides I use the Lapik 3. This allows all of our weapons to get the full benefits from our furniture. Plus the toxic weapons will drain crew stamina and therefore make it harder for our enemies to brace and allows us to do even more damage. And it's a very lethal combination, as you'll see. You might have noticed I'm using Leopold 3 in this footage instead of the Lafleur, and that was just because I was testing out the best auxiliary at the time, and it is definitely the Lafleur with this build. Also, just like all my other builds, this one is very simple to use. You always want to try and keep your enemy in front of you and keep them at longer distances, so you always have the advantage. However, the enemies can often spawn in close to you, so make sure to point the front of your ship towards them so you can unleash your full firepower. Plus our added furniture will help us survive those close encounters. For the armor, I highly recommend the Immortal Vessel. This is perfect because our greatest defense is offense with this ship. This armor makes you unsinkable for 6 seconds when you're close to death, and those added 6 seconds gives you plenty of time to unleash a toxic hell on your enemy and sink them before your shield wears off. I've seen it used many times and it's always worked well for me. And that's all of the most important stuff for this toxic Garuda build. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy using this build as much as I do. This is honestly my favourite ship in the game, but I'm sure that will all change once the large ships get added. Come on, Frigate. I'll leave you with some plunder footage in the Garuda, and you can see how easily it destroys the structures. Just keep aiming at those weak points. I've got plenty more build videos in the pipeline ready to go, even a Lightning Garuda. So I hope to see you all in the next one and see you in the Indian Ocean. Bye.